This is our staff meeting of March the 17th. I'd like to make a motion to excuse Commissioner Dreehouse.
Second.
Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Yes,
Commissioner Reese.
Yes.
thank you. We have a fairly short, agenda today. I want to say happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. Those who are Irish, who think they're Irish, don't know if you're Irish, but we just celebrate everyone. So I'm going to go over to our administrator and see what he has to say. He's going to open up this first agenda item.
Commissioner President, I'm sorry. Since you said it was St. Patty Day, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't have my colors on right now. But my brother-in-law would be so upset because his birthday's on St. Patty Day. So now you have forced me to have to
really?
say happy birthday to my brother-in-law so I can keep the family tight.
Yes.
Dante Stewart, happy birthday.
All right, happy birthday. He thinks he's Irish, right? Okay, yes, sir.
All right, thank you, commissioners. So I'm just going to kick off item number 1 here, which is on your agenda titled Fostering Solutions for Overland Flooding. We have Henrietta Locklear and Crystal Kendrick here to present to us today. Just a bit of background for folks who may be watching it at home. Certainly, as the board is aware, one of the challenges that urban developed counties face as development increases, as density increases in the community, and development and redevelopment occur on top of existing infrastructure, development becomes more and more packed together, as it becomes more and more difficult to handle stormwater. It becomes more and more difficult for water to drain naturally without impacting people and the built environment. So it's one of the major issues, a major quality of life issues we hear from residents in terms of phone calls, complaints from residents, communities, et cetera. It can, when it's not handled correctly, overland flooding can wash out roads, erode yards. It can damage property. It can cause flooding. It can destabilize structures. And in its worst cases, it can cause a threat to life and safety. So in 2024, recognizing this problem in the community, the board asked the administration to develop recommendations on how we could do better in this area, how we could improve collaboration, and just how we could overall better address the issue of flooding impacts in our community. That assessment concluded in November of 2025, and the board received a report on it in January. So today we have Henrietta Locklear and Crystal Kendrick here. Henrietta is from Raftellus, Crystal from Voice of Your Customer, to walk us through the findings and the results of that work. So I'm going to turn it over to Henrietta now, but I do want to just give a couple of thank yous. I'm not sure if there's people in the audience from these groups, but we had a lot of stakeholders work on this with us. So the Metropolitan Sewer District, the Hamilton County Stormwater District, Hamilton County Planning and Development, the Cincinnati Stormwater Utility, Public Health, and the Hamilton County Conservation District all work together to put this report together and to inform the report that you're about to hear from our guests today. So with that, commissioners, I'm going to turn it over to Henrietta.
Certainly can come up. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. I'm Henrietta Locklear. I'm a senior vice president with Raftellus, and I appreciate the opportunity for us to be able to come and present to you today on this project undertaken by the county. I'll review these elements of the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, either along the way or at the end. As Administrator Aludo discussed, these were the project stakeholders that participated, identified by county administration to be the focus of the work. And if you can believe it, these aren't even the only agencies that handle things related to stormwater management in the county. And so, as we'll talk about later, if you undertake any additional actions, there will be even additional agencies and stakeholders to be involved, but we really appreciated their participation and their work on this topic. Our project team is shown on this slide, and all of these team members had integral participation in the project. And as you know, Crystal is here to speak today as well. And she both designed and facilitated the in-person collaboration that I'll describe later in the project, where we achieved a lot of participation and great ideas and outcomes from those stakeholders that I just showed. These project goals were identified by the county as critical for this work. These goals were to improve collaboration, assess stormwater management provision within the county, and offer recommendations to meet and reduce overland flooding and meet regulatory requirements. The project was made up of 4 major portions, milestones, that you can see here. The first milestone was data collection and review, which you can imagine was extensive from the various agencies in the county. And this milestone was completed in February or so of last year. The second milestone was a summary of the observations and recommendations from a review of program, funding structure, and benchmarking activities. Milestone 3 was a summary of the consensus building workshops that were undertaken in Milestone 3, in which we reached a consensus definition for overland flooding and identified collaboration and cooperation activities. And the consensus building workshops were held in May and June of 2025, facilitated by Voice of Your Customer. And then 4th was the final report, which I believe you've had a chance to look at, and that report summarizes all the work undertaken during the engagement and lays out the recommendations for future steps for Hamilton County and the various stakeholders. The report focuses on program, funding and governance, benchmarking, assessment of collaboration opportunities, barriers, and recommendations for level of service expectations. Part of the collaborative efforts during Milestone 3 was to develop the consensus definition of overland flooding. And so since we'll be using that terminology elsewhere in the presentation, I wanted to display here that agreed upon definition. So it's unconstrained water resulting from rain or snow melt that flows over surfaces or exceeds the design capacity of conveyance, public or private infrastructure, including, and it gives the examples of ditches, pipes, easements, floodplains, stormwater control measures. The consensus definition provides a crucial foundation to support further steps identified by the stakeholders and consultant team, such as establishing specific levels of service, continued collaboration, and securing funding for critical work. The stakeholders noted that we'll need to go into further detail on this definition as the work continues. So first, on Milestone 1, we'll discuss the data collection and interviews. The project team held 6 interviews, 1 each, with the stakeholders, and the findings from these interviews included the multi-agency provision of service, varied and insufficient funding to mitigate water quantity challenges, and stakeholders agreed that there's a lack of definition that's commonly understood for overland flooding. And so that's one of the reasons that we focused on it in Milestone 3. Under Milestone 2, we conducted a review of the best-in-class stormwater programs, and we conducted interviews with a number. Sorry, let me back up. The program review of the various services provided by the agencies confirmed what we found during data collection, which is that there is not a single overarching authority in Hamilton County that is specifically focused or has dedicated funding to address large-scale overland flooding. And so stormwater management, and this is not uncommon, is fragmented across multiple agencies and jurisdictions. And so that leads to reactive efforts rather than a coordinated and long-term strategy. When we interviewed other jurisdictions, we had some key lessons learned. That the collaborative efforts among various jurisdictions are essential for success, and that these jurisdictions spend a lot of time understanding what defines success for them and what the level of service is. They centralize data, they standardize prioritization of issues, and they have dedicated and sustainable funding. They use a variety of governance structures to help them solve the problem of stormwater management in their jurisdictions. As I mentioned, stormwater management responsibilities in Hamilton County are currently dispersed across a number of agencies with different service boundaries and different mandates. And stakeholders have limited jurisdictional authority or enforcement over things like private infrastructure. Many stakeholders are significantly collecting data about issues, but the data are not able to be fully used across the county because they're not consolidated. And a number of stakeholders noted the deficiency of funding there. Going back to the other agencies that we reviewed, I wanted to give you a look here at who those regional service providers were. And they have successfully navigated governance structures through a variety of mechanisms, including interlocal agreements and state and local legislation efforts that provide the underpinnings of their structures. And as a result, they've been able to consolidate and dedicate funding to solving overland flooding in their own jurisdictions. I won't go into each jurisdiction or group of jurisdictions here, but I will note that they have developed their structures over time and their ability to work together, and that they've included a lot of the elements that we talk about as being recommended at the end of this presentation. I don't think I have anything else to note on this slide, but this sort of reiterates the sort of 4 pillars of these jurisdictions' success here. All right, next I'll go on to milestone 3, and during milestone 3, we built consensus with the stakeholders. We held 2 workshops that included 19 staff members from the various agencies, and they were actively engaged in the discussions, and very importantly, they expressed a willingness and a desire to cooperate on resolving overland flooding across the county. The workshops discussed technical and operational tasks, the duties and the resources necessary to address overland flooding. And then we converted in the second workshop that discussion into the development of near and long-term actions, which I'll discuss shortly. The stakeholders confirmed that there are barriers of governance structures and funding and data sharing and jurisdiction and enforcement. So, for example, because of data deficiencies, there isn't even necessarily a clear understanding or enumeration of the extent of overland flooding in Hamilton County, although we know that it is an issue throughout the county. So some opportunities that the group discussed were centralizing a data hub as an initial task to track flooding events and share infrastructure complaints across all jurisdictions, and that will help enhance the existing routine communication channels among the jurisdictions so that they can provide clear and consistent messaging that addresses common misconceptions that are held by the public. And also, a strong consensus emerged for establishing a county-wide or regional district to holistically address water quantity and flood control. Although at the outset we had imagined that this portion of the project would involve establishing a level of service or levels of service across the county, the stakeholders agreed that developing a level of service was premature at this time. There are essentially so many even more basic things to discuss that is an additional task that the group needs to undertake. And the stakeholders recommended adding even more partners to determine the community's desired state, which will help us to understand the level of service that the public and the communities want to see. And so it's developed that a focused and facilitated effort be employed to further discuss and develop the desired levels of service for overland flooding. Finally, under the final report, we issued that, as Administrator Aludo said, in November. And the report captured the findings from the previous milestones, and it focused on some near and long-term opportunities. The stakeholders recommended that they build connections that consolidate problem data, communications efforts, and citizen service requests. That they establish a foundational framework for collaborative planning and comprehensively addressing stormwater management, and that they determine the viability and support for an independent regional stormwater management program or entity. The stakeholders debated this overarching goal to establish a unified, proactive, and sustainably funded regional approach to comprehensive overland flooding management across Hamilton County, ensuring clear roles, responsibilities, and defined levels of service. Within this goal, there are 4 focus areas for the Commission to consider: a unified regional approach to governance and responsibilities, proactive and preventative planning and infrastructure evaluation, sustainable funding that provides an equitable mechanism for water quantity services, and coordinated actions among the stakeholders and agencies that ensure effectiveness. So we've developed the following near and longer term actions based on the stakeholder input and planning during the second workshop. So there are 6 near-term actions that are within the 1 to 3 year time frame, and some additional action items and a potential lead agency are identified for each one. So the first slide contains the first 3, which relate to the data and consolidation of requests and information that I discussed earlier. And then this is the second group involving planning, consensus building around level of service, and governance feasibility, including a work group on the potential establishment of a new independent regional stormwater district. And as we discussed during the project, some additional stakeholders and considerations will have to be added to the project to effectively carry out some of these actions. For example, the Mill Creek Valley Conservancy District and its outcome, and other agencies. Over the longer term, and the stakeholders recognize that many of these things will take years to accomplish. We've gotten to where we are over the course of many years, and it will take concerted effort over many years to work out these problems and help to establish overland flooding solutions for the county. And the longer term strategic work included potentially establishing the stormwater regional entity as described here. Importantly, securing sustainable funding to really be able to plan and to carry out a number of activities to reduce overland flooding. And then, in addition, to implement consistent standards and enforcement, to implement proactive infrastructure management, more so than the reactive management that we have in many cases today, and to increase capacity across the county, that is, resources dedicated to all of these efforts that I described. So to conclude with my part, Hamilton County desires to have a regional approach to stormwater, but it's hampered by the fragmented governance, inconsistent standards, and a resultant reactive approach, and critically, the lack of dedicated funding. We found during the project that the stakeholders involved were impressively and highly willing to collaborate and had many ideas about how to do so. And the consensus definition for overland flooding is just one example of how they came together. We know that the path forward requires a staged approach. In the near term is some foundational work on data, gathering of customer information, tracking and working more closely together in a more informal way. And then longer term success will be determined by dedicated resources, dedicated structure and governance that can provide sustainable funding to solve overland flooding problems within the county. Some immediate next steps are shown on this slide, which relate to those initial and short-term goals that I talked about. And those could be initiated by the board. And I appreciate your attention and the opportunity to present. And I would love now for Crystal to come up and say a few words about her work on the project and her experience with us.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
As we conclude, I want to briefly reflect on the process, the people, and the posture that made this work compelling and actionable. To begin, I must acknowledge the stakeholders across Hamilton County and the participating municipalities. From the outset, the group showed up as faithful civil servants, accessible, prepared, and genuinely committed to addressing overland flooding in our service area. The openness, responsiveness, and respect extended to the project team fostered productive, efficient dialogue. That approach reflects a public service culture that prioritizes outcomes over optics, as well as collaboration over silos. I also appreciated how our project team approached a complex, emotionally charged issue such as overland flooding. The team shared a clear understanding that this challenge does not sit with the responsibility of any single department or discipline. Rather than assigning blame or debating ownership, the conversation stayed focused on the what, the how, and the impact to our county. That orientation supported effective problem solving, surfaced interdependencies, and advanced practical solutions with urgency and clarity. This mindset represents a best practice for addressing legacy infrastructure and environmental challenges. As work progressed, the conversations made clear that many stakeholders perform tasks, often independently, that directly or indirectly affect overland flooding. Our long-term recommendation to explore an independent or coordinated structure creates a path from reactive responses to proactive alignment. In the interim, I sincerely hope an urgent next step would be to take a deeper look at the work, policies, and investments that address overland flooding today that are already underway and align them more intentionally to deliver immediate impact and meaningful relief to the residents of Hamilton County. That said, technical solutions reach their full potential only when paired with accessible, actionable information that builds trust and shared accountability. Selfishly, as a communications professional and a Hamilton County resident, I want to underscore the importance of public education. Quicker progress depends on clear, consistent outreach to residents and property owners about ownership, responsibilities, and prevention measures for overland flooding. Finally, I want to acknowledge this Raftellus team. They entrusted me, a subcontractor, with meaningful work, included me in substantive decisions, invited me to the methodology and strategy, and sought feedback on deliverables. This level of inclusion strengthens the final product while building capacity, trust, and long-term opportunities for local small businesses. Thank you to Hamilton County, the project partners, and this Raftellus team for the professionalism and collaboration that made this work so much successful and possible. I am grateful for the opportunity and proud of the work we delivered together. This engagement truly stands as a strong example of how subcontracting relationships with the county's bold vendors should function. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up for Vice President Reese if you have any comments or questions. Henrietta, if you.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want you to have to stand so long. I do want to thank you all today for bringing us up to speed on this. I do want to point out Mr. Robert Bell from our economic team that has been doing an outstanding job at the county from where we came from. I think it was $1,600, and now we've got all kind of stuff going, and Robert Bell's been leading that. And I want to thank him. I do want to acknowledge Brown E&C. Is that Mr. Eric Brown's company?
Yes.
Okay, because he's also a Black-owned business. Of course, Ms. Crystal Kendrick, who has done several things, I believe, with our county, with the voice of the customer, and appreciate all the work that you have done. Now, I'm going to be honest today. I'm not on the Stormwater Committee. Each of us have committees that we're on, and I'm not on the Stormwater Committee. So I'm not the one that's updated or, follow up. I get when we get to the budget and they start talking about increasing or decreasing, I'm definitely against increasing any type of extra money on the taxpayer. I am familiar that we have a terrible system in terms of how MSD is set up in our county with the city. They basically run MSD and we basically fund MSD, and we are in court. And I can't talk about more of that, but I was hoping that that would be solved. It has not been solved. So we have those issues. And so I'm a little bit perplexed because I'm not the stormwater representative, and you all are presenting something. I don't even know, Mr. Ludo, help me find out. be honest, I didn't even know what is this? Is this something came from stormwater, or is this something we budgeted? I just help me bring me up to speed.
Yeah, sure.
because I'm not the person that's on that committee.
Right. So no. So this was something that the board chartered in 2024 as part of the budgeting process to look at the issue of overland flooding in the community and just try to come up with short and long-term recommendations on how to deal with the community impacts of flooding. You know, we get calls all the time about the water, and this is not this is not sewer backups like MSD sewer backups, but this is I've got water running through my backyard. It's up to my waist. The commissioners I know got videos from people, from residents, I think out in Loveland, where the water was up to their waist. It was running into their basement. So this is the conclusion of a study to identify an approach, both short and long term, to figure out how do we address this problem of all this overland flooding in the community. And some of it relates, as was said, to the starting point of just starting to identify strategically where these hot spots are. Where are we seeing this throughout the community? And then once we do that, we can start to figure out how do we address those unique, specific issues. But long term, the bigger issue here is going to be that, to your point, Commissioner, there is no governance structure for this type of problem yet. There's a bunch of different agencies out there that do a little bit or do something in it, but nobody has responsibility completely for this issue. And that's going to be the next step in this is, okay, how do we put together a structure so that we can better manage it long term?
Gotcha. Well, my thing is on here, it says project goals. Number 2 says provide an assessment to Hamilton County Stormwater Management Service Delivery. Is someone here from Stormwater?
So no,
That's
but
my
I don't think that.
I guess I feel like Stormwater should have been here to hear this if they haven't heard it, or either I know we do one-on-ones, and I thought, I don't know if this is usually sometimes we have when we have a presentation to the public, we usually bring all the entities. If you're doing a presentation, now you can come to our offices, and we could have done a one-on-one. We do that sometimes as well. But my whole point is, it says provide an assessment to Hamilton County Stormwater Management Service Delivery. No one's here from
Well,
Stormwater.
Commissioner, if I could,
So I'm trying to figure out
yeah.
what are
the
we doing?
report is to the board. It's to the it
I
wasn't.
got that, but if you with stormwater, there's a lot of reports to the board, and the people that's doing the work should be sitting in the room. We don't have time to just sit here and just put a check mark. If you're on the stormwater committee, because I'm not on it, so I'm not listening to everything they got going on, but stormwater should be sitting in here just like Robert Bell is sitting in here. We should also have MSD in here. We should have water, because when this water goes up, there's a bill that comes with it. It ain't just your basement flooding. You get a bill afterwards, and you got to pay for it. So I'm just saying, if this is an important presentation, then the people should be sitting in here. And so that's where I'm coming from, because I don't have all the expertise on it. Where's the environmental people? Where's the stormwater management people? Where's the MSD people? Where's the people that's dealing with the water? I mean, there's some things that intertwine. I mean, we can do a check mark and say we got a presentation, but I want some action. Where's the people that's over it? Because when we do, we have presentation all the time. If it's JFS got to be sitting up in here. If it's a presentation on women and girls are sitting in the room. I'm just saying, I don't have all the information. I mean, I got this, and I appreciate it, but I want to see where is the stormwater people? Where is the people that charge you when you do have a big flood? And that's kind of where I think is missing. And then the people that brought me the presentation, they ain't even sitting in the room. Not you guys, but the ones that said, let's schedule it, they ain't even in here. So this is, come on. I done seen rooms packed with all of our staff sitting in here when we do a presentation. And I just, if it's important, that's what because I don't really have questions. Because I don't know the questions to ask, because I'm not on the stormwater committee. I do know we have floods. I do know that they want to charge people for floods. What's that pervious surface fee that's coming down? If you got flooding going on, they want to charge you. I just need to know how all these pieces come together. But President, thank y'all for the presentation. I probably will have further questions at some point, but I don't have any more questions today except where is everybody that's supposed to be doing this for a living that we pay? They should be sitting in here listening and available. I'm not expecting Jeff Aludo to answer the question. He's the administrator, but we done hired some people. They're on the organizational chart, and they should be sitting in here. Why are they busy? Why are they unavailable? They should be sitting in here in case there is questions or we want them to connect with you all for some action. So I may have something later. I don't have nothing today, but I'll give it to President Dumas. But that's my question. And I would hope that when we have presentations that's on a subject matter, those who are getting paid to work on those subject matters to please be here, because this is the board. We're the board, and they should be in here ready if there are questions. May not be any questions, but they're here and available to us. So that's what I would ask for the next, as we move forward on something like this.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Only just one note, in because I can't see through the pillar here, but I do believe Mohammed Islam from Planning and Development is here. So one of the entities, commissioners, that manages stormwater of those stakeholder groups. I know Mo is here, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It just says stormwater, conservation, public health, planning and development, and sewer. So it had to take all these components, and I just would like to hear their thoughts. And I'm sure we'll be able to hear them after today. But going forward, let's try to get everybody sitting in the room. Thank you.
Okay.
One more thing.
Sure.
So, commissioners, there's a lot of very technical information in these reports, and it would probably be very challenging for you to even take the time to understand it. But I do want you to understand two things as a layperson that I would like to share with you. One, that I hope that we will act on. One is that there are people who are doing work to fix this problem. And if somebody could lead them and they could come together and we can tie these databases and systems together for, for a minimal cost, we could have a lot of impact on our residents. So I hope that's one thing that we'll take out of here. And the second thing is that most residents don't know or understand their responsibility. Most property owners don't know and understand their responsibility for maintaining their land and their pipes and all those other things outside, either through their insurance or just maintenance. And a communication strategy to educate us about that could be very helpful to us all. So those are just two things that I know that you would understand if I explained them to you, and I appreciate your time and hope that you will take those two things just to start to get us going.
Thank you. That's why I asked for stormwater, because they got a budget, they got a communications, and maybe there. But we'd
I
have to
like
get their
technical
expertise.
stuff, by the way. I like reading technical stuff. I'm just a nerd like that. So, yeah. Well, Henriette, I just thank you for your comments. But I just have a few questions. How long has your group been meeting, the stakeholders group?
They met, well, we interviewed them in the early part of 2025, and then they met to get all together in May and June.
Okay.
And then since then, they had an opportunity to review the deliverables and make comments and so on.
And how much did we pay for this?
That I don't know, Commissioner. I would have to.
125,000.
125. You said that, so okay, 100.
Here's-
Okay. Let me just say a few words. And Commissioner Vice President Reese brought up about the impervious surface fee, which is not mentioned in this, but I don't want this to be another impervious surface fee. We've been going back and forth about what we're going to do about that, if we're going to do it, about 7 years or so? And so I don't want this to be that. I'm going to direct your attention to milestone 3, level of service, and it says, defining specific measurable levels of service recommendations for water quantity control is premature. And I'm just wondering, how long do you think it's going to take for some sort of realization of the specific measurable recommendations? I mean, I don't want this to go on forever. You don't either. We've had residents that come here with this overland flooding issue, just some of them in tears. I was wondering about the stakeholders. Had you thought at all about including private for-profit construction people, because they're causing a lot of the issues building the new homes, and then it overfloods, and then they don't have any capacity to either pay the residents or for them to pay for damage. So I wondered if you had thought about including anybody like that.
In this part of the project, it was just the public agency representatives. But there is among the action items, one is related to implementing consistent standards and
Where are you reading
enforcement.
that?
That is on slide 27.
But is it under milestone?
Oh, no, it's under the longer term strategic
Okay,
work.
the 1 to 2
Those-
years and maybe 3 to 5 and,
And I think that if not earlier,
right.
that would be one opportunity for including development related stakeholders. I sorry, I thought somebody else was piping up. In relation to the level of service, I agree with you that it's foundational and we do need to get there. And I think what we struggled with in this very initial phase was, what are we even talking about having a level of service for? So one of the great contributions of Crystal's facilitation was to develop a process where we could start with talking about what we're talking about. So what is overland flooding? Because the agencies didn't even really have a common word or set of definitions to
So
understand.
how long does it take to come
develop?
to a conclusion of what overland flooding is? It's been quite a long time, and you say they haven't figured that out yet. And so I imagine we're going to be asked to give more money toward this process eventually to start again. I'm just saying, how long does it take to, it's not,
Yeah, I think that we're so much closer after coming to agreement on what overland flooding is. That helps the agencies to understand, what are we trying to achieve? And so I think the level of service follows, almost the next thing. And I think what, in addition, would help us to kind of coalesce on where it is we want to go, that is, what level of service do we want to achieve, would be to have an even greater understanding, a more granular understanding, and a comprehensive understanding of what all the problems are. Because one of the things that we found is that, sometimes citizens are calling the wrong agency. And so then they're referred to a different agency, and that agency is the one that can help them, but they don't always call. Maybe they give up, and so the agencies can't develop a grand understanding of how bad the problem is, where it is, and then if you don't know where it is, you can't fix it. So having some more coalesced data and then build together with that definition that we developed during this process would definitely help to get us to that point. What are we trying to achieve? What is our level of service?
okay. And Commissioner Driehaus is our rep for stormwater. And I think of Vice President Reeves, when I was with her yesterday morning, she indicated that she was on her way to a stormwater meeting yesterday. Is that correct? It was last week. Okay, thank you. Okay, one other question. On the conclusion, you have the challenge is Hamilton County's current approach to overland flooding is hindered by fragmented governance, inconsistent standards. I won't go into the inconsistent standards, but can you just explain to me the fragmented governance? What was your focus on that?
Well, as Crystal talked about, the stakeholders, the agency members, and I want to emphasize this too, are very interested in collaborative work together, but they're only allowed to do their piece of the pie. So if they're responsible, for example, the stormwater district is responsible for water quality, So they're responsible for compliance with the county's permit, and they help the other jurisdictions with that compliance. But they don't have money to, work on flooding problems. So they have that water quality piece. They don't have funding to do water quantity. And then, there are other agencies with their own piece, and it doesn't reflect a lack of willingness to solve the problems. There are bounds around what they can do
No.
under their charge. And so they each have a little piece, and none of them has the whole pie. So it's difficult to solve it holistically.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
President Dumas.
Yes.
I just want to be clear. My point was the people who are hired to work in stormwater, to be here to help us, so we don't have to, what we hear, then we got to find them. And I just think being here, all of those components that's who I'm referring to, not the board members. Obviously, we're the board, but that would be helpful to us, because I don't know I know I see the problem, but we're not in the meetings every day. We don't do this every day, all day. So, and even with Ms. Kendrick's recommendation that she made, that you both made, certainly want to hear what they have to say about it, or if that is something that can be plugged in, or are we doing something that needs to be better? I don't know, because they're not here to tell us. So hopefully I know what you all have recommended. I'm sure Mr. Aludo will take back and get back with us with some answers. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So we'll move on to item 2, recommended enterprise zone agreement. Michael, is it Whitten?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you for coming from Alloy Development.
It is good to be here. And again, I hope you'll forgive me for wearing absolutely zero green today. My Irish ancestors would be very disappointed in me, but here we are. If we can get my presentation. Awesome. Thank you. So good morning, commissioners. As you mentioned, my name is Michael Whitten. I'm Alloy's Economic Development Specialist. I oversee our tax incentive administration for these programs, including the Enterprise Zone program. Today, I have for your consideration an Enterprise Zone agreement with Group Sales. Today, I am joined by Senior Vice President of Alloy, Harry Blanton, President of Group Sales, Jason Ernst, and Village Administrator and Fire Chief Doug Waymeyer from the Village of Lockland. So here's a quick project overview. It is Group Sales' intention to construct a brand new 72,000 square foot addition to its existing facility in Lockland. This proposed addition will greatly increase the warehouse capacity of their operations, which is crucial to their organizational growth. The total investment will be around $7.1 million. It will include the retention of 38 full-time positions in Lockland and create 3 new full-time positions by 2029. So visual aid here, if you look to the west of the existing building, you'll see that the expansion, 72,000 square foot, really kind of fills out the remaining site capacity of the site. So really my understanding is that they've been utilizing absolutely every inch of their current building. So this expansion is really necessary. You can kind of see how sizable the need is. So a little further breakdown of what that investment will actually entail from that 7.1 total. It'll be $6.5 million for new construction, $250,000 for additional repair and remodeling, $100,000 for furniture and fixtures, and $250,000 for new machinery and equipment. Like I said, 38 full-time positions will be retained, 3 will be created. The retained positions will make sure an annual payroll of about $4.7 million will be retained, and the new payroll total will be around $175,000 annually. And as you can see, given the math of that, the average annual salary will be about $58,000, which is, of course, above average. Given the information that we were provided and the application for the Enterprise Zone, Alloy recommends a tax abatement of 75% for a total of 6 years to support the project. Of course, we wouldn't have moved forward without community approval of the project and their endorsement of the company. Like I mentioned, Village of Lockland is here, and they approved a resolution on March 9th in support of the incentive. Lockland School District and Great Oaks were properly notified and have expressed no objection to the project either. And of course, without the incentive, it is it would be exceedingly difficult for the project to move forward, and there might be the possibility of seeking market alternatives outside of the village of Blackland, which would not be ideal. But that's what I have for you today, commissioners. I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah, very brief, I know. That's how strong the endorsement is. It doesn't take much more explaining than that. So I'm happy to take any questions for you, and any project-specific questions I'm sure Jason from Group Sales can answer as well.
Thank you. Vice President Reese.
You mentioned someone from Laughlin is here. Would they like to, would it be okay if they said
Some
something?
questions too, but
Good morning.
Good morning. I just had a question. You said you reached out to Great Oaks. They're okay with it, and the school district is fine with it. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's actually Alloy that takes care of that, but
Alloy
there was
did
no
that.
objection from
Okay,
either.
no objection from you. Okay. And then it'll retain the 38 and then create 3 new
Yes, ma'am.
full-time jobs. Okay. And tell me again where this is located. I'm in Laughlin.
So it is on South Cooper between Wayne Avenue or Anthony Wayne Avenue and Wyoming Avenue. It's sandwiched between. It's about a 360,000 square foot facility. They're literally busting at the seams. So this will bring them the additional space they need to retain their property in Laughlin. It's a great benefit to the village, both in income and sales. And they are a tremendous partner to the village in all activities that we do.
Okay. That's all I have.
okay. Just a quick question. I'm looking at the little blue things on the map. Is that residential? If you could put that map up, Leslie.
Yeah, there are 4 residential homes
Okay.
that are in front of that.
Okay, and everybody's in agreement, as you were saying.
We've had no expressed we've had no expressed objection. It's not typically Alloy's policy to reach out to residential owners in the area, but per the Ohio Revised Code, we are obligated to reach out to the school district and Great Oaks, the affected school districts, and we do so by making sure that we give them at least 14 days notice via certified mail, and I reach out to them digitally as well to give them the opportunity to voice any concerns of the project. We received none from them. If we were recommending a higher term and percentage for the project, say if it were a mega project, 100% for 15 years, that would require school board approval. In this case, not so much, but we have not had any other concerns about the project at all.
Thank you, and thank you so much, and Fire Chief.
Yes.
What's your last name again?
Wiemeyer.
Wema. It looks so tight in between the existing and the new warehouse. I see it says, it's not as tight as it looks.
It is not, ma'am. There's it's probably a 20 to 25 or more,
Looks like,
actually, so much more, 60-foot roadway that goes before there. Currently, they're moving onto a parking lot. So in the back portion of it, so there's 60 feet between the buildings and plenty of room for our apparatus to get through, as well as delivery trucks and other things. I also wanted to point out, ma'am, that the entire zone there, including those 4 houses, were probably rezoned in 2012. That is all light industrial. So the homes that are still remaining there are non-conforming permitted uses in the industrial park.
okay. And I'm thinking about ingress and egress. At the top, it says detention basin, which is a little bit away from that, but you can enter both of those areas from either side.
Yeah, there's actually 3 entry points or more. The 2 on South Cooper, and then if you look to the right of the paper, there is a large delivery dock area that goes around the property as well off of Lock Street.
Okay. Thank you. And I
Right,
just
thank
wanted to make one other comment about the tax abatement, the 75% in 6 years. It's very reasonable, and I appreciate, you guys usually come in with reasonable requests, and I certainly appreciate that. So, okay.
It is certainly nice to have the fire chief here because he can speak to all the building, construction, everything too. Is very helpful. Thank you, Doug, for coming in.
You have anything else? What's the next step?
Yeah, no, apologies. Yeah, the next step will be we will have this item on your regular meeting agenda, preferably the consent agenda, and then it would be voted on like all the other items. And then once that agreement is approved, we will forward that packet up to the state per the Ohio Revised Code.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is anyone here from the company or?
Yes, we have the president, Jason.
Would you
Ernst,
like
as
to,
well.
is it okay? Let him say something.
Morning, ladies. Thanks for having us. I'm Jason Ernst. I'm actually the manager of the PropCo, property owner, and as also the president of Group Sales. We appreciate Alloy Development, Village of Laughlin. We've been there 10 years. We don't want to leave, but we obviously have to expand to grow our company and be able to keep 38 people employed and hire 3 more over the coming years. So we appreciate you considering this tax abatement for us.
And I appreciate you coming down. It shows how important it is.
I'm glad I was here after
Yeah.
Ms. Reese is out there. I'm staying in the room.
Stand it up, yeah.
Any questions for me?
No,
He wants a question. Give him one.
I love to hear, particularly in this economy, that you are expanding.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I just wanted to make sure, because the type of business that you have, just wanted to, I mean, I guess you're doing well, or is,
You're doing well. We're blessed to be. We are a wholesale toy distributor, and one of our core verticals is to help nonprofits. So we don't hide. We are a for-profit company, but we help support and service nonprofits across the country. Back to school giveaways, holiday toy giveaways. That's a core part of our. And as we know, economy times are tough, and a lot of nonprofits do great work, and we try to support them.
oh, great. Well, you could talk to JFS. They're somewhere around here. We do our back to school.
Yeah.
They'd love to. But thank you for the work that you're doing, and I'm just happy to hear expansion in these days and times, and particularly in a community like Laughlin. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Vice President Reese, did you have anything else?
I don't have anything else.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Yes.
Commissioner Reese.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.